Sunny Austin does this multiple times a week, sits for hours in her BC home discussing every aspect of the disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan. In the chat, members of their family.
You were able to authorize and start getting some...
Two children, 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack, vanished from their mobile home in Lansdowne Station without a trace. No witnesses, no evidence. Just an empty house and questions that would haunt an entire nation. When massive ground searches turned up nothing but a pink blanket in the dense woods. When police updates became scarce. When traditional media coverage began to fade, their grandmother made a choice that would spark fierce debate across Canada. She turned to YouTube, to true crime channels, live streams, and a community of strangers who refused to let these children be forgotten. But this decision opened a Pandora's box of ethical questions. Can social media help solve crimes? Or does it turn tragedy into entertainment? Where is the line between advocacy and exploitation? And when a family is drowning in unanswered questions, who gets to judge how they search for the truth? This is the story of Lily and Jack Sullivan. This is the story of a grandmother's desperate fight for answers. And this is the story of how the internet became both a lifeline and a minefield in the search for two missing children. This is Crime Chronicle. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about missing persons investigations in the digital age. Stay with us. Lansdowne Station sits in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, a sparsely populated and heavily wooded community about 140 kilometers northeast of Halifax. It's the kind of place where your nearest neighbor might be a kilometer away, where the forest presses in close to scattered homes, where children grow up with more trees than people in their backyard. On the morning of May 2nd, 2025, police received a 911 call reporting that Lily Sullivan, 6, and Jack Sullivan, 4, had wandered away from their home on Gairloch Road. The call came from their mother, Malihia Brooks Murray, who shared the rural mobile home with the children and their stepfather, Daniel Martel. According to the initial report, the children had simply disappeared. One moment they were there, Lily last seen inside the home, Jack's voice heard somewhere on the property, and then nothing. Silence. Empty rooms. A mother's growing panic. The area where they lived was challenging terrain, dense forest, steep slopes, countless places where two small children could become lost or hurt. Within hours, ground search and rescue teams mobilized. Volunteers combed through thick brush. Search dogs tracked scents through the woods. Helicopters scanned the canopy from above. For 5 days, the search intensified. Hundreds of volunteers joined professional search teams. They searched day and night, calling out the children's names, hoping for any sign, any clue. The only thing they found was a pink blanket, presumably Lily's, discovered in the woods near the family's property. No other physical evidence. No footprints leading away from the house. No sounds of children crying or calling for help. Since then, she has built a community, about 18,000 subscribers and tens of thousands of views on her videos, of people who believe that public attention can make a difference in unsolved cases. When Belinda Gray reached out to her about Lily and Jack, Austin saw an opportunity to do what she believed she did best: keep a case alive in the public consciousness. Multiple times a week, Austin returns home from her day job and sits down for hours-long live streams discussing Jack and Lily. She's sometimes joined by co-host Charmaine Swart of the True Crime Story podcast. And crucially, members of the Sullivan family participate directly. In the chat during live streams, names appear: Belinda Gray, Daniel Martel, Darren Geddes, all members of the children's family, commenting in real time, adding their perspectives, sometimes revealing new information. On September 19th, Austin went live to discuss the RCMP's announcement that cadaver dogs would be deployed in the search. About halfway through the video, a comment from Martel, the children's stepfather, appeared: "I should release all the information I brought to major crimes that would point fingers. It's undeniable, and I hold back." This was no longer just a YouTube channel discussing a case. This had become a platform where the people directly involved in the investigation were speaking publicly, making accusations, and sharing information that wasn't coming through official channels. For Gray, YouTube became her primary source of information. In the beginning, it was my only way to get any information, she explained in an interview with CBC News at her home in the Muskoka-Boit Valley. She started speaking with Austin over Facebook Messenger early in the investigation, and the two became friends. Gray sometimes appears as a guest on the show, using it to dispel rumors and get her side of the story out there. For example, early in the case, rumors circulated that her son Cody was incarcerated in Western Canada. In fact, there was someone with that name facing criminal charges in British Columbia, but it was a coincidence, not her son. Gray used Austin's platform to correct this misinformation. She also announced on the show that she would be seeking temporary legal guardianship of the children, both to be kept more informed by police and to care for them if they were found. Through Austin's show, she even connected with a British Columbia lawyer who began helping her pro bono to explore her legal rights. I look at YouTube as a great tool. Can it run amok? It sure can. But it is still a great tool if you use it the right way, Gray told CBC News. She sits at her kitchen table, posters and photos of Jack and Lily pinned on the fridge nearby, and adds something that reveals the depth of her despair. She has been saying for months that she doesn't believe the children are alive. To me, the more people that talk about Jack and Lily, the better it is. I don't care who they are. They can state whatever they want that isn't true. I don't care because people are listening and Jack and Lily's name is still out there. The impact of YouTube coverage on the Sullivan case has been measurable. Police confirmed they have been following up on more than 800 tips, some of which were submitted as a direct result of the true crime shows covering the case. Sergeant Chris Marshall, commander of the Southwest Nova Major Crime Unit, acknowledged that social media does help bring cases in front of new audiences who may have pertinent information. He cited an example where police became aware of someone involved in a case who was not previously known to investigators. My experience is that there is a big benefit, but it's like anything, there's risk and reward to anything that we do, Marshall explained to CBC News. But then he outlined the downsides, and they're significant. Some tips are simply not factual, and while police might know this from the outset, they're required to do their due diligence and investigate fully, which ties up police resources. We now have to put investigators on that information, which is taking people away from potentially chasing down actual, real leads that are actually based in fact, Marshall said. There's another problem. While some information being shared online is factual, it can get clouded with misinformation and give undue credence to rumors and theories. The difficulty becomes when people take everything that comes out of these as proven fact, when often there's very little that's done to actually prove that any of the information is actually factual. Dr. Whitney Phillips has studied this phenomenon extensively. An associate professor of information politics and media ethics at the University of Oregon, Phillips specializes in understanding how online systems impact real-world events. Her assessment is blunt. There are major ethical issues with discussing such cases on platforms like YouTube. Phillips explains that click-based web engagement is designed to flatten real-world events, including trauma and human suffering, into commodified content. The attention economy has long driven popular culture and news, with the most intriguing, shocking, and upsetting information being what people respond to and engage with. But this can reduce victims of crime and their families to a consumable product. I think it's important to remember that every single story that unfolds online, it's real people, Phillips said in her interview with CBC News. But our online systems and the attention economy incentivize it so that we're not always thinking about the actual people. There's also the issue of consent. Families might initially agree to discuss the case online, but that can change. And at that point, their story essentially belongs to the internet. Once information is out there, once theories are posted, once accusations are made, once speculation becomes part of the public record, it cannot be taken back. The digital footprint is permanent. Phillips is clear. The attention economy is inescapable. That's why content creators have a responsibility to understand these dynamics and consciously make choices that prioritize ethical considerations over engagement. So just caring about the outcome is not actually enough to guarantee a positive outcome for all people involved. That is one of the tricky elements of the attention economy. It doesn't care about your motives, she explained. I believe that content producers, including everyday citizens sharing information, have a responsibility of understanding what their digital technologies might not be wanting them to see in terms of the human impact, the human consequences. Austin herself is aware of these tensions. She acknowledges that not everything said on her show is based in truth. I'm here for the advocacy of the victim. I'm not here for lies and mistruths, she says. But she also admits that unfounded theories do arise during her broadcasts. Austin concedes that the Sullivan case has stretched her beyond what she normally commits to her YouTube show. She admits that she does make money off her channel through YouTube and donations, but insists that's not why she's doing it. We just keep fighting for people to share to the algorithm to keep the story out there. We do it for Jack and Lily, Austin said, sitting next to a painting of the two children on her wall. As of October 2025, Lily and Jack Sullivan remain missing. The case is still active. The investigation continues, but there have been no major breakthroughs announced to the public. No arrests, no closure for a family that has been living in limbo for 5 months. The RCMP Northeast Nova Major Crime Unit continues to lead the investigation, assisted by units across Canada and organizations including the National Centre for Missing Persons and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. They have deployed cadaver dogs. They have reviewed hundreds of hours of camera footage from residents in the area. They have followed up on every credible lead. But 2 children remain unaccounted for. The YouTube shows continue. The live streams happen multiple times per week. The theories multiply. The comment sections fill with speculation, with prayers, with accusations, with people who genuinely want to help, and people who are simply drawn to the drama. Belinda Gray continues to speak publicly through these platforms, sitting at her kitchen table with photos of her grandchildren on the fridge behind her, maintaining hope even as she privately fears the worst. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. Traditional institutions, police departments, mainstream media, government agencies move slowly. They follow protocols. They respect legal boundaries. They cannot always provide the transparency that grieving families desperately need. And sometimes their methods are not enough. The internet, by contrast, moves fast. It's democratic. It gives voice to people who feel powerless. It can mobilize communities, generate tips, and keep stories alive when traditional media moves on to the next headline. But it also operates without guardrails. It turns tragedy into content. It can spread misinformation as quickly as truth. It can harm the very people it claims to help. So what is the answer? The truth is there may not be a single answer. Every missing person's case is different. Every family's needs are different. What works in one situation might be harmful in another. But perhaps the real lesson here is about responsibility. If you're a content creator covering these cases, you have a responsibility to think beyond engagement metrics, to consider the human cost of every theory you promote, every accusation you amplify, every piece of unverified information you share. If you're a viewer consuming this content, you have a responsibility to remember that behind every case are real people experiencing real trauma. These are not characters in a Netflix series. They are mothers and grandmothers and children who did not ask to have their worst moments turned into entertainment. And if you're a family member considering going public with your story, you have the right to make that choice. But you also deserve to understand that once you step into the digital arena, you cannot fully control what happens next. Lily and Jack Sullivan are not a case number. They are not content. They are not a mystery to be solved by amateur detectives in comment sections. They are a 6-year-old girl who liked helping her grandmother in the garden. They are a 4-year-old boy who played quietly with toy trucks. They are children who deserve to be found, to be safe, and to have their story treated with the dignity and care it deserves. Belinda Gray was right about one thing. The more people who know their names, the better. Awareness matters. Public attention can save lives. But awareness without ethics is exploitation. Attention without compassion is consumption. As this case continues, as the YouTube videos keep streaming, as the tips keep coming in, we must all ask ourselves, are we truly helping or are we simply watching? Are we advocating for justice, or are we just feeding the algorithm? The answer to that question will define not just this case, but the future of how we engage with tragedy in the digital age. This has been True Crime Chronicles. If you have any information about the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan, please contact the Nova Scotia RCMP or Crime Stoppers. Every tip matters. Every piece of information, no matter how small, could be the one that brings these children home. To Lily and Jack, people are looking for you. People care. People have not forgotten. Subscribe for more investigations that prioritize truth, ethics, and the humanity of those affected by crime. Because at the end of the day, behind every headline is a real person. Behind every case is a family waiting for answers. And behind every view, every share, every comment should be the understanding that what we're witnessing is not entertainment. It's someone's life.